Well, here we are with another Mercury retrograde video. Because if there's one thing I love, it's making videos during Mercury retrograde. It's a grand time. We all love it. Things are gonna go swimmingly. It's gonna be fun. And we're gonna get through this quickly. We're not gonna delay. Alright, we're going for a personal story here. We're going for fun times. We're going for good times. We're going for lessons learned. We're going for sweet little Rhea. Sweet little Rhea, my beloved niece. My beloved niece. Back when she was the old 4 years old and change, and had a little bit of growing up. Well, let's get into it. Rhea, eldest daughter of my youngest sibling. I've referred to her as my spirit animal when I've seen the deep depths of derision that she gives to a camera when she's forced to be a part of a photo shoot. Ah, Rhea. One of the most independent and just focused on doing her own thing with no regard to what anyone else is doing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, as an infant, if she was hungry, she would go grab her, high chair and drag it to the table. This is what we're talking about. Intense Taurus energy, okay? Intense Taurus energy with some Aries mixed in. And some serious Pisces in there. I want to just put out there that she's also extremely sensitive and has been showing intense artistic ability from the get-go. Her Venus, you'll note, is pretty close to the exaltation of Venus degree in Pisces. And Chiron happens to be right on that exaltation of Venus degree. So I think there's a really amazing future story here about a really pained artist. Nobody gets her. Just puts it into the art. And I'm here for it. She's also hilarious. And so we're going to talk about Christmas a few years ago and something pretty significant that happened, and just I found the astrology really striking and interesting. So I want to dig into it. So first off, we need to discuss something I haven't brought up on this channel yet, which is the system which Robin Armstrong divined, but really believes, and I happen to agree with him, that he's rediscovering this past tradition of the I Ching, which was thousands of years ago a system of astrology tracking the light cycle as the yin wanes and the yang waxes. And here we are at the beginning of another light cycle. In fact, we're in the exact degree, in the exact day that this happened a few years ago as I record this video. Now, this system that Robin developed regraphs the I Ching onto the zodiac, where every degree of the zodiac corresponds with a line from the I Ching. The bottom line represents the momentum of light. So a yang line is the waxing of light of the sun every day. And here we are, after the winter solstice, the light is returning. And in this degree, we're in the second hexagram of Capricorn, corners of the mouth. Now remember this. This is key to the entire plot that I'm going to lay out for you here, which is so stubborn. Stubborn, wonderful, glorious Rhea. I was visiting this family, this wonderful, lovely, beloved family of mine for Christmas. And Rhea was having a particularly Rheific day. She remember, corners of the moon. The day started with this building momentum of tension between her and her mother about whether it was cool to eat snow or not. And she was in an oral fixation age. And so snow was going in the mouth no matter what was going on. And where they live down south, the snow is ephemeral at best and pretty closely tied to the excretions of the many dogs these people have. If you know. So she was shoving snow in her mouth. Now remember, corners of the mouth. This hexagram is all about watching the dangers of what goes into the mouth and what comes out of the mouth. And so this was the beginning of the structure of the battle of this day. Okay. Now, as the day waxed, she was to go and visit her paternal grandparents by going for a little visit with Grandma, a little ride around town, and wound up for some reason getting angry and spitting water in her face. So here we see dangers of what's coming out of the mouth. We were left at home, and she and her sister went off to have this lovely holiday experience, which did not end like super great when we discovered that Rhea had taken the dentures of her grandfather and tried to flush them into the toilet. Not a super cool thing to do, but also pretty funny that we're in corners of the mouth and she's trying to flush dentures down the drain. Okay, so Rhea is not in her parents' good books at this point. We're not having a fun day when she gets home. It's not great. And her father has to deal with this. Now, Rhea's obstinacy, which may in the future be a blessing and a boon to her. I relish the opportunity to be a part of that journey and try to coax it into a productive domain. It wasn't productive that day. And it often is. But it's always hilarious because she's not my daughter, so I get to just enjoy these things from a distance. And she is non-stop enjoyment for me. Okay. Sorry, Brittany. Sorry, Steve. But I love it. I love it. I just want to know, we'll go back to her chart for a second. She's got Saturn in the 12th, and Saturn is her ability to structure things, and her resilience, and her relationship to authority. And for her, it's hidden in the 12th. It's bound. It's Jupiter ruled. It's in the third decan of Sagittarius. It's not something that's easy for her to access, and it squares her moon. Okay, so her relationship to authority is specifically connected to her own inner mind and inner emotions. It's a conflict. It's going to be a conflict her whole life, and it's connected there with Chiron and her Venus. So the best thing I can say about all this is that she's going to have amazing inspiration for her art with the conflicts she has with trying to live in a structured society. Now, going back to the day in question, we see here in the chart of this day, and I don't have the exact moment that this all went down, I'm making a best guess. We see here, first off, for this day, the moon is fallen in Scorpio. It's in the Via Combusta. So the nurturing, the feelings, the emotions, it's a difficult day to begin with. And the moon is squaring Saturn, so the structure and the authority and the father figure is not going to be super compatible with the inner feelings of this situation in this day. And it's forming a T-square with Uranus, no less. So there's a shocking element to this whole day and to how this is going to play out. Okay, so, well, I'll say this. There's definitely an element of the first child and daddy's little girl in the parenting here that was... I don't want to judge you. Parenting's difficult. Nobody can do this perfectly. That is not a thing. And especially with the first child, we all make mistakes. But they didn't create a strict, firm boundary for her soon enough, which led to a lot of the difficulties that we have experienced. And we see this with Saturn in the 12th house. This has now become something she's going to have to deal with the rest of her life. Her own feeling of that sun on the IC, that in a spring sign, in a very yang, I mean, it's Taurus is a feminine sign, but with the light balance here, it's towards the more yang end of things. That her own inner desires should take precedence to everything. She feels that very strongly and has a hard time relating to people on their level with what their needs are. This is a challenge she has to deal with. But on this day, Saturn was dignified in Aries. Oh boy, howdy was it ever. So me and my lady friend at the time are in the living room when this deal goes down, you see. And probably when this happened, this would have been a little bit earlier maybe, Pluto may have been right on the midheaven, and Saturn would have also been in the 10th house. So we see there's some harsh repercussions coming down to little Rhea here. And we're a few days off Christmas, and her brand new LOL dolls wind up in the garbage, okay? And she's a Taurus, so the things she owns and the things she wants, you can't punish a Taurus. You can't punish a Taurus more harshly than throwing away the things they love. These LOL dolls wound up in the garbage. So we're in the other room listening to Rhea hyperventilate and essentially just have this well-earned panic attack about finally dealing with some repercussions for having put her own desires in the moment above the well-being of her family and everyone else, which was an ongoing issue with Rhea. And so I'm going to recreate for you now this conversation that we're trying desperately not to audibly react to as it goes down. Dad, you LOL dolls cost a lot of money. Well, dentures also cost a lot of money. But Dad, not as much as an LOL doll. Actually, they cost a lot more than an LOL doll. But Dad, I don't like you very much right now. Well, Rhea, when you do these things, it's very hard to like you as well. Well, Dad, I don't think you're cute anymore. Well, Rhea, I don't think I was ever cute. We had to not laugh at this moment. Oh my goodness, this was a moment in time. This was a moment in time. So this whole event goes down, and eventually Rhea goes off on her own to try to assimilate what's happening here. Now, one thing I want to note here, which really blows me away about this chart, is that Jupiter, which is the great benefic and bounty and beneficence and joy and celebration and all these things, but it's also wisdom and understanding. Jupiter had just moved into Pisces that day, the feminine sign of its dignity, that same day. And this was a moment that Rhea really needed. She needed some serious repercussions to help her understand. She needed to listen to people. She needed to pay attention to other people's feelings and to what was best for the group. This is just a beautiful thing. And again, in this moment, Jupiter is in the 10th house. Jupiter is angular. Jupiter is powerful. Saturn is right on the midheaven. Saturn is angular. Saturn is powerful. This is a defining moment for her, and she goes off and she has to just try and come back. And this is sort of the sad, tragic part of the story for me personally. This was our last day there. We were going back. I live 14-hour drive away from these people that I love so deeply. And we were gonna make this big meal. We had this big plan to have this, final meal together. And it didn't turn out that way, which is the sad part of the story now. So Rhea is, coming back into herself, and we're playing with her younger sister, and we're having a blast. She built this huge tower of giant Legos, and I took her baby, and she's going, man, I'll say this now. I might as well say this now. Ivy, the younger daughter, she has Jupiter conjunct Moon, way up high, way close to the midheaven. And that morning, I knew she was being born. That morning, I drove into work, and I saw this Jupiter-Moon conjunction, this beautiful Jupiter-Moon conjunction in Sagittarius. And it was just, this is my niece. Oh, what a beautiful, glorious moment that was. And that signification led to Ivy being the most crazy baby I've ever seen in my life. She was like 2 years old maybe, and if there was a baby around, people would give her the baby and she would just be like I've never seen anyone with this Jupiter Moon signification of just care, Jupiter blowing up these lunar significations of care and love for the little ones. And so Ivy has a baby doll, and it was a bit of a risk, but she's also an Aries sun, so I was pretty sure I could get away with it. So I was using her baby to be a monster to destroy her Lego tower, and she loved it. She was laughing her head off, and she was trying to build it, and the monster baby's coming and destroying the tower. And so Rhea starts to, edge back into the scene. Rhea's sort of slowly coming back in. And she's still sad, but she realizes she's missing out on this fun time that we're having with her sister. And of course, we're leaving the next day. We don't want her to be stuck in sadness. We want to be able to enjoy her company, which we obviously did. And so she's lingering in the background and watching and laughing, and we don't realize that she is up against... She has her back against a wall, and there's a cabinet there, and she's walking up with her feet up high, watching us and laughing and listening. But unfortunately, the side of that cabinet, which we didn't realize, was glass. And so Rhea's foot goes through the glass, and she falls down and had a very serious cut on her foot. So obviously, this day turned into something else entirely. I was trying to deal with this, and her mom getting on board early, and then going to the hospital, and all these things happening, and calming Rhea down, and holding her foot, and pressing. You get it. But from an astrological perspective, it felt like this was all part of this like traumatic event, which was meant to like really instill the lessons of this day into her. Astrology isn't nice. It doesn't have the same sort of humanitarian kindness always that we would like to script into it. And you can see in this chart of the moment that Mars is angular and Mars rules cutting. You know, Mars is the blood. Mars is red. It's angular and receptive in the 7th house. Her refusal to listen and to be receptive to other people led to the darkness of this moment. And she's okay. She has a foot. She runs around. She still kicks me. It's all good. But it was a moment, for sure. And I see this chart, and I see it just so specifically described, so particularly described, that I wanted to share it. I wanted to show you guys. I mean, we also see within this chart, if I get the timing right, and I mean, it was a range of about, I guess all these things happen within 45 minutes or something like that. Now, an interesting thing about Jupiter moving into Pisces, not only is it the place of its feminine rulership, but Pisces also rules the feet. Okay? Now we have Mars in Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, which is now in Pisces. Mars cutting the foot, and Mars is in an exact sextile with Saturn. So we see here the capability of learning and wisdom coming from this injury. Is astrology that literal? Nah, it's not literal. We have an ascendant in Gemini. So it's ruled by Mercury, which is exactly conjunct Pluto, which is this planet of harsh lessons, the underworld, darkness. Venus was there too, you know. Venus was like exactly conjunct. You have this triple conjunction of Venus, Mercury, Pluto. Venus rules the 6th house of this chart of illness and injury. And this triple conjunction is in Capricorn. Saturn ruled, lessons learned. Rhea, you're growing up. But damn, I love you.